Okie dokie, what's happening, dudes? My name's Kevin Duty, and we have a pretty interesting knife review today. This is the Orion Solaris. Now, I hadn't heard of Orion knives before I was offered this knife in a trade recently, but turns out they're based in Oregon, and this is the only design they have so far. They do have another one coming out soon, I believe, but this is the only knife that they have available right now. And it's a button lock. We got two means of deployment, flipper tab and thumb studs. We got a nice G10 handle, a little bit of milling here. And we have a red anodized aluminum pivot collar. We have a red G10 backspacer, and we have a titanium milled pocket clip that works very well. So this is a full-size knife. And let me tell you right off the bat, the action is very, very good. Free swinging blade. This thing is super duper fidgety. So let's get some specs out of the way real quick. We have a blade length of 3.15 inches, or for the non-decimal people, 3 inches and 3 1/8 inches. Handle length of 4 3/4 inch, and an overall length of about 7 7/8 inch. So it's a full-size knife. We have kind of a cool pivot there. When I first saw it, I thought it was maybe proprietary hardware because it has those 3 holes around it. But turns out those holes don't really do anything. There's a Torx screw in the, Torx screw in the middle of those. So it's all T8, which is great. All T8 hardware. We just have, it's minimal hardware. We have the pivot, the pocket clip screw, and 1 body screw. So that's great. Now this is it's a weird looking knife. I'll just say that. The design might not be for everybody, but let me tell you, it really, really grew on me. It's super comfortable in the hand. We have a very, very generous forward finger choil here, probably the most generous large one that I've come across. And the choke up position is pretty much the only way you're going to be holding this knife. Holding it back here really does not make sense to me. You're so far back from the blade, and I just don't think the knife is meant to be held that way. You can, it's perfectly comfortable, but this knife is meant to be held right up here. And you can see the scale kind of gives you a little bit of a ramp here for your thumb, so you can either put your thumb there, or you can go over that and put it onto the blade very comfortably as well. There's no jimping up here, but it's really not needed because you're super duper locked into this thing. So I forgot to mention the weight is 4.9 ounces, so not light, but not overly heavy. Blade steel of 14C28N, so great, super great. Let's talk about the action. So this knife took me a little getting used to, not only in aesthetics, but in the action department as well. The weird thing about the knife is the thumb stud is really far away from the pivot. So if we look at another thumb stud knife, and this is how most of them are, the thumb stud is relatively close to that pivot, so you break the detent and the blade flies open. That's pretty much it. Your thumb is not staying on that thumb stud for very long before the blade's flying open. In this case, there's kind of some travel before you let go of that thumb stud and the blade flies open. And that's not the detent's fault, because the detent on this knife is really, really good. It's actually one of my favorite parts about the knife. It just takes some getting used to, because you're not used to kind of pushing the blade out that way. But once you get it, man, it is very satisfying, and the sound this thing makes when it opens and shuts is really nice. I'll shut up for a second, maybe it'll come across on the camera. It's really, really cool. It's very fidgety, and the same thing is kind of the case with the flipper tab. You can see as the blade opens, it's exposed for a really long time before it disappears behind that scale. You can see with a typical flipper tab, it's disappeared behind the scale pretty quickly. And that just takes some getting used to. It's not good or bad. In fact, I kind of tend to think it's better because you can either do the light switch technique or the push button technique. But with the push button, it's almost more of a light switch because your finger is on it for so long before it disappears under the scale. So you can do the push button or the light switch. I usually do the light switch. It kind of fires out a little bit harder when you do it that way. But both is perfectly fine. I would venture to say that there isn't really a push button on this knife since the push button really just feels like a light switch. If that makes any sense at all. We have a relatively thin blade stock. It's a really nice broad blade, full flat grind. It feels like it gets pretty thin down at the edge. I really like this blade shape. It kind of reminds me of the Ritter Hogue RSK, or almost like a shaman blade, kind of. I really like it. Really utilitarian. The tip isn't too far away. I usually like my tips a bit lower, but this works just perfectly fine. I can use this thing left-handed perfectly well, as I fail. Yeah. I'm not a lefty, so it takes me a little bit longer, but this knife is perfectly functional left-handed. Only difference is you hit that button with your pointer finger instead of your thumb. Guys, I have a lot of fidgety knives, most more expensive than this, and this is a knife that I play with a lot, and I carry it a lot. My only real complaint is we don't have a deep carry clip, but it is pretty close to deep carry. You have about that much of the knife sticking out of your pocket, but not a huge issue. And another cool thing is if you go to the Orion Knives website, he actually sells aftermarket, well, not aftermarket because it's him, but he sells scales and backspacers and pivot collars. You can get what's it called? It's like a raindrop carbon fiber kind of scale for this knife on his website, and they're only $35, which is pretty crazy. You can get a couple different color backspacers, pivot collars, like I said. So you can customize these things how you want them. And his parts are really reasonably priced on that website. So the OEM for this knife, they don't make it in-house. Orion Knives, whoever it is, designed it and then sent it off to QSP to be built and produced. So that's pretty cool. I mean, every QSP knife that I've handled, I really, really liked. And I think QSP did a really good job with this. I actually have a new penguin coming in the mail, which you will see in a video coming up. So that's pretty exciting. Overall, I really like this knife, and I think for $85, it's a very good price. And just the uniqueness of the knife, it's just cool to have in the collection. It's just an odd knife. It just looks kind of weird, but it's a purposeful design. It's really comfortable in the hand. That choke cut position is just, that's what the knife is built for. You're supposed to put your hand right here, and it's extremely comfortable when doing it. Yeah, it's just it's all around a really nice knife. Really recommend the Solaris. And actually, he has a design coming out pretty soon called the Scorpio. And actually, it might be out already. But I believe it's more of like a clip point blade. And then there's another design coming out with, I think, like a Wharncliffe blade shape. And I can't remember if the handle is the same or if it's been a little tweaked. I can't really remember. But definitely keep your eye on Orion Knives. They're doing cool things over there. Really nailed this button lock. It's one of my smoothest button locks and most fidgety. Yeah. Orion Solaris. Go pick yourselves up one. You will not regret it. And Oh, wait a minute. I was about to wrap it up, but we haven't done size comparisons yet. Let me wipe off the blade here. All right, how about the Spyderco Pm2? Pretty similar. The Pm2 is a bit longer. Let's do the Benchmade bug out. There you go. What else? What else? Kaiser Deviant. Demco AD 20.5. There you go. What else we got here? I recently traded a lot of my knives. I'm kind of doing a purge of the collection, and I still am waiting to receive the knives that I traded those for. So I'm a little bit thin in the collection right now, but it's exciting because I'm getting some pretty sweet stuff coming, and I'm looking forward to showing you guys. So that's about it for size comparisons right now, but you get the idea. We could do the Rat 2, actually. I recently just did a stone washing of the Rat 2, which I really like. There's a video I did on stone washing blades, if you guys are interested in giving that a shot. It's pretty easy. Just got to get a couple supplies, and you're good to go. Really cool. Kind of a cool customization option that you can have right in your house or shop or garage or whatever. So that'll about do it. That's the Orion Solaris. Thanks for watching.